Okay, so this is part two of what I am calling the holy pattern for how God's glory falls on a marriage. The holy pattern for marriage, for praying for a marriage miracle and winning. Okay. And I had intended, as this always happens, I intended to start this differently, focus on different things, but the Lord is actually having me do it a little bit differently. And so, what we are doing, so part one was the biblical grounds for divorce. That is obviously the most important thing. So, if anybody here has not walked through that, that's extremely important. You have to know where you stand, right? A lot of people are like, "Well, I need to know God's will." Read the Bible. Go read the Bible and go and you'll have your answer. Um, a lot of platforms right now are being run by demonic spirits and demonic agendas. I am seeing them all over the place, basically giving uh women, because it's mostly women who want, who are asking for divorce, giving them scriptural basis for divorce that is totally a complete twisting of scripture. And when I was going through my hell, um, I wanted to know, I wanted to know what was God's will. Like I've said this before. Above anything, I'm an obedient daughter, and I don't care how much pain it puts me through. I don't care how much uncomfort, discomfort. I don't care how much inconvenience. I do not care. It doesn't matter to me. What matters the most is what is God's will, because I know that when I stay in his will, I stay in his protection. When I stay in the Lord's will, I stay under his protection and I stay under his provision. When I step out of the Lord's will, I am on my own out there, and that is not a place I want to be. Okay. This is something that so many women, wives, people, humans, but we're talking marriage right now, do not understand. Well, can't separate from him because, I don't know how I'm going to do the finances. Do you not know the God you serve? Do you not understand that if it is God's will for you to separate and even go no contact right now, because He tells us to guard our hearts? We are not here promoting, very kind of strict biblical grounds for divorce, which really only cover two things, which I'm not going to cover here because I covered it before thoroughly, and then leave women in a place where they're just having to accept abuse. Absolute zero. No. It absolutely may be God's will that you separate, that you go no contact, and or not. That's between you and God. But he does tell us to guard our hearts. He does tell us that. And so many women that I have talked to have been like, but I can't do that because, and then they give me an earthly reason. And I'm like, what God do you serve? Who do you think you serve here? Do you honestly think that your Father in heaven is going to direct your steps to separate or go no contact from your husband and then drop you and be like, and good luck figuring your life out, good luck having provision, good luck with money? What? Like, that's not how he works. He would never do that to you. He would never do that to you. Now, what he will do is allow you to feel and experience the consequences of being in sin. He may have, exactly. He may have plans for your provision, but if you are in sin, look, your enemy is in the courts of heaven every single moment of every single day and night, accusing you. And so, if you are in sin, there are probably legal rights that the enemy has against your finances, against your health, against all kinds of things, against your provision, that were those lifted, the Lord could absolutely just ambush you with incredible resources. And there's a woman inside this community who I'm telling you, she was texting me for weeks, her porch filled with food. Like, after she made the decision that she was terrified of making to actually serve her husband a restraining order and actually have the police remove him from the home. And she was like, I don't know how. She's got three babies under 3 years old and a 16-year-old, okay, and a job that does not cover the bills. And she was like, I just don't even know how. I don't even know how. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Let me remind you of the God you serve. And I said to her over and over, your obedience is your protection and your provision. You've got to understand that. Your obedience to the Lord is your protection and your provision. And so she finally was, she gathered up the courage to do it. And I am telling you, the Lord ambushed her for weeks, still doing it. The 24 to 48 hours after she made that decision, I mean, she was blowing up my phone. Things that never happen. Childcare through the state for an entire year when they said you only can get 30 days free. And then it'll be stopped, and then you'll have to reapply, and it'll take all this long time and whatever. And then the next day they called and they said, or I don't know if they called or she called, but they said, oh, you have it for a year, actually. You have free childcare for an entire year. She had her electric bill paid for several months. Like, I mean, things that don't happen, okay? Because she obeyed the Lord, because she trusted in him with all her might and did not lean on her own understanding, but in all her ways followed him. Okay. So anyway, this today was going to be about something else, but that something else is going to be for next week. Today, the Lord wants me to talk about the ways that you um how does he want me to say this? The ways that women, that wives fall into faithlessness so easily. I am telling you right now, this is one of the number one ways the enemy has gotten to you and is getting to you and will continue to try to get to you. He is going to try to distort your sight. He is gonna try to make you see with physical earthly eyes. Um, this is not where I was intending to go. Um, mm, okay. The enemy comes against the sight of a woman. We have spiritual sight. I mean, we all do. We all do. But women, I believe, and I'm not going to go through the scriptural basis for this, but I believe that women and wives have been given spiritual sight. If you think about your relationship with your husband, you're probably always the one that's like, I know we're meant to do this. God gave me a dream. He gave me a vision. He spoke to me. He's like, and your husband's probably like, okay, I haven't heard that. Like, I don't know, I don't agree, or I haven't heard that, right? There's this disconnect. There's often this, you know, kind of like, how are we on the same page? How are we not on the same page here? Like this, God's totally showing me this. Genesis 3:1. Now, the serpent, this is the first time the serpent shows up. The serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. This is mere verses after Eve was formed and the first marriage was created. Okay. And I've said this before in other places. The serpent came against a wife. I would admit somebody else here. The serpent came against a wife who was also a woman, but her position, spiritually, physically, her position, and the reason he chose her was because she was a wife. And she was anointed, and I've taught this on this before, by being called Ezer Kenegdo, helpmeet for Adam. She was anointed and appointed to be his spiritual covering, protector, and deliverer. So Satan went against the shield. He went against his most formidable opponent. We know in Ezekiel, and I never get this right. Is it 3? Is it 8? Is it somewhere? I don't know where the Lord is speaking to Lucifer basically and saying, you shining star, right? And talking about how he was in before he fell. And he said, you were a covering cherub. Okay, that word covering means protecting. Okay. Satan, before he fell, was one of the cherubs that protected the throne room, protected the throne room of heaven, okay, from which all covenants flow. The throne room is essentially the place that creates and upholds and maintains covenants. He was a covenant protector. So when he fell, he is now a covenant destroyer, a covenant attacker. And it always reminds me of it's the reverse, but same concept. These shows on TV of somebody who made a living breaking into homes. I've seen this guy, and he made a living like actually as a thief breaking into homes. Then he had a come to Jesus moment, and he was like, "This is really bad. I can't do this anymore." So then he started a company going to homeowners' homes, and they would like leave, they'd lock up the way they normally do, and then they would leave, and he would like break into their home legally, like with their permission, and show them all the places where their home was weak and susceptible to people like him, right? And then they would, be like, oh my gosh, we need a new security camera. We need this, we need that. Satan's doing the opposite. Because he covered covenants, because he protected covenants, he knew, this is my reading, okay? This is my reading of scripture. He knew that Eve was going to be his biggest problem. He did not attack her because she was the weaker sex. He did not attack her because she was just the easiest way to get to Adam. He attacked her because he's like a sniper. If I can take her out, I got the marriage. I got him, I got the marriage, and I have the entire fall of humanity. I got all marriages. I now have an end to all marriages. So, you're you just have no idea how powerful and how important your role as a wife, as an Ezer connected is. You have no idea. And one of the most important pieces of that, in fact, it's really the most essential piece, is your spiritual sight, is the sight with which you perceive, translate, understand, respond to what is going on. Okay? Does that make sense? And I'm gonna go through this. This is what we're doing today. Because I am so sick. I love you guys, but I am so sick of getting messages from people being like, but my husband doesn't want that. My husband doesn't care about me, but my husband. It does not matter what your husband wants. It does not matter what he wants. Okay? You've got to get that out of your brain. It does not matter what your husband wants. What matters is what God wills. What matters is what God wills. Stop thinking about what your husband wants. It doesn't matter what he wants. If God wills this marriage to be transformed, it does not matter what comes out of your husband's mouth or through his fingers into a text message. It doesn't matter. And I am telling you right now, the enemy loves to just have you sit there and take your husband's word as mattering at all. He loves it. He loves it. Because he knows that whispering changes your seeing. And if he can get you to change your sight, to prioritize and platform and pedestal what's going on with your husband and coming out of his mouth at any given moment, he's got you. He has decommissioned you as a warrior in the spirit. You've put your sword down, you've put your shield down, and you're like, well, it doesn't matter because my husband, like, your husband doesn't matter. Yes, emotional distress is a tool of the enemy, and it is about how he whispers and what that does to your sight. And I'm going to show you that in Genesis 3. Now, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God has made. And he said unto the woman, he is going, I'm telling you, you have got your ear gates have got to be guarded up. You cannot just take any random thought that comes into your head as mattering. You've got to have gates. You have to have gates. The gates of a wall, like a walled city, the gates determined who got in and who couldn't get in. They did not just let anybody. You can't, you cannot just walk into Tucson, this the way that you tried to get into Jerusalem or any of the ancient cities. You had to make it through a gate. And you had to be allowed in. You had to have business inside, you had to have family inside, you had to be like you did not just get to go inside the city, right? Same. Thoughts are not created equal. Lots of them are from the enemy. They need to be ejected, rejected from the gate of your mind and your soul and your spirit. Don't just let any random thought walk right in and hang out in your brain and in your mind. Okay? He said to the woman, yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, okay, so number two, you talk back. You like have a conversation with the devil. You don't know you're having a conversation with the devil, but that's what you're doing when you entertain these thoughts. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of this tree and that, not that tree. And you guys all know, how that conversation went. Um, and the serpent said unto the woman, no, you won't die, right? We know all this. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened. And when the woman saw, this is verse 6, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was pleasant to the eyes, she ate and gave unto her husband, and he did eat. Do you see how this works? He goes through here and then he gets to here. The enemy whispers into your ear gate, and if you let him in there, he is going for your sight. He is going for your how you perceive. Okay. So that really actually wasn't planning on going there, but it's super important because that's what we're talking about today. We are talking about the importance of your perception being on point. It has got to be on point. You are under attack from the enemy, just like Eve was. And he is busy every single second of the day and night trying to control your perception and your spiritual sight, to destroy it, to dismantle it, to distort it. Because the way you see is the way you war. The way you see is the way you war. If you see your husband as the enemy, you're going to war against your husband, and that is exactly where the enemy wants you. If you see your husband as a captive, someone who has been taken captive by the enemy, now you're going to go, you know what? It's not awesome. It's not awesome that my husband chose to come under the influence of this enemy. That's not awesome. We're going to deal with that in a minute. But right now, I'm breaking him out of jail. That's what I'm doing. Right now, I am arraying my entire spiritual army against the actual captor here, the actual enemy. And I am not going to be fooled by this. I am not going to be fooled by who is my actual enemy. Listen, your marriage, this is the Lord has placed your marriage in your spiritual hands. Spiritual hands, not physical hands, spiritual hands. He has placed it in your spiritual hands by calling you an Ezer Kenegdo. That word, Ezer, is used after it is used to describe Eve. It's used half the time it's ever used in the Old Testament to describe God delivering or protecting the Israelites from their enemies. This is a warrior term. Okay? He has placed an enormous responsibility on you, not on your husband. I'm sorry. It's you guys have we have different jobs. It is not your husband's primary responsibility to spiritually protect you and the marriage and himself from your spiritual enemies. It's just not. It's not there in scripture. Doesn't mean he's not supposed to do it, right? It's kind of like my mom in business, used to say, because we used to place project managers who had whole teams under them. But you know what? If the project went south, she's like, there's one throat to choke. And that's the project manager. That's the person ultimately responsible. This is why the enemy is coming against your sight, your sight, your sight, your perception. This is why. Because what you see, how you see is how you war. Okay. Um, okay. And so the reason we're doing this today, instead of getting into the holy pattern, which I didn't really understand until the Lord was like, you're not talking about that thing, we're doing that later, is because there's objections in your mind that we have got to deal with, right? The objections of, but my husband doesn't want this. But my husband says he doesn't love me. But my husband says it's over. But okay, you are not going to be positioned in the place that you must be positioned, which is a general on the battlefield of the war over your marriage. If you have any doubt in your mind about who already has the victory. Do you understand what I'm saying? I wish I could repeat what I said, but I can't. The point is, I don't want you going onto the battlefield until several things are in place. Number one, you must have certain knowledge that the Lord has handed down a ruling of victory. It's actually one of the parts of the patterns we're going to be going through. And you have to have dispelled, literally, because these are spells that the enemy is trying to cast over your mind and your perception so that you are ineffective on the battlefield. Okay? It's literally the most important thing. Um, okay, so this is amazing. So this is amazing. Somebody says, I know that the devil is behind all the evil lies and accusations of that my husband spews at me, but my husband has believed all of it, and I don't know how to help him believe the truth. Okay. That is not your job, my friend. You got to stop doing that today. You got to stop it now. It doesn't matter. Right now, your husband is not going to hear anything you say other than through the demonic ears, right, that have been placed over his ears. You got to understand this. Don't waste your mouth and your breath on your husband. Go use it in the courts of heaven. Do not waste your breath right now on your husband. You got to go get him delivered by the hand of God. Do you understand? There is an order here. There is an order here. If your husband is under, think of it as an addiction, okay? Think of it as an addiction because that is what the enemy serve the enemy as cease and desist. Yes. So the think of it as like a spirit. He's like a spiritual addiction, okay? He's an addict right now, spiritually speaking. He is addicted to the demonic in his life. You probably all have had some experiences with addiction yourself or someone in your life. Can you speak sense to an addict? Like, and does anything that come out of your mouth, no matter how perfectly sensible it is and 100% truth up and down the line, does that do anything to them? It does nothing. It does nothing. So the point is, you said that's the reason he left. I'm not trying to convince him myself, but I've been praying for God to deliver him, and nothing appears to work. Right. But the fact is, though, you said, I don't know how to help him believe the truth. So there is in you, there is within you this desire to like have something to do with him changing his mind and changing his heart. Okay. Because you said it. So potentially what is happening now this is amazing because you said nothing seems to work. Okay, listen, there's a lot of reasons why something might not be working. Number one, you keep looking for evidence. You're like, I mean, when I was pregnant, I didn't go get an ultrasound like every day because I didn't need evidence. It was going to happen. Trust the process. You're looking for evidence, maybe an evidence of your faithlessness, that it actually is going to come to pass. And if you are praying and contending, but there's a part of you that's like, I don't even know if this is going to work, then you have your answer. Yes, the amount of energy you have to battle is so much more when you give. Yeah, doubt cancels prayer. So if you're like, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? I'm telling you right now, just you might as well not pray. Your prayers are weak and ineffective because you are meddling with God's timing and you're not actually convinced and totally, certain that this victory is done. Otherwise, you wouldn't be looking. You wouldn't be looking. Okay? Okay, so we're going to talk today. So there's a lot. I mean, I'm glad because this is helping me understand kind of where we need to get your mind. And of course, this is a process. So we're here for the long haul. So, but today it is about your spiritual sight. Okay, today it is about your spiritual sight and the importance of being in boot camp with yourself. Like you need to put yourself in spiritual boot camp. Okay? You got to put yourself in spiritual boot camp right now. Okay, so we are going to, where are we going? Um, yeah, okay. Numbers 4, 14, 9. Um, somebody said, how do you become convinced? So I've spoken on that and I will continue to teach on that. That's actually part of the holy pattern. But here's the thing. You're looking for a kind of convincing that you'll never ever find. Because I know you and I have given you words myself, and you have heard words yourself from the Lord, and you just won't stand on them. Okay. According to my understanding of how this works, there is not going to be a man that walks up to your door and says, knock, knock, knock. I would like to deliver a certain word from the Lord that your marriage is going to be restored and your husband is coming back. And I'm now going to fly up into heaven so that you know that I'm an angel from God. Okay, you're going to get dreams, you're going to get visions, you will have prophetic words spoken over you. They will be confirmed. The vision will be confirmed. The dream will be confirmed. The prophetic word will be confirmed from somebody else who didn't know that this prophetic word was spoken over you, right? Exactly. This faith is, and I always get this twisted. Faith is this. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen, right? So there is evidence, but it's not the same as what we consider evidence in the physical. It still requires faith, right? But not hope, not hope, faith, evidential. This is why I think that verse is so beautiful. The evidence of things unseen, right? The evidence of things unseen. So it's still unseen, but there's evidence. Okay. There has got to come a point when you say, I've heard it enough, God. I get it. I'm standing on your word. And then from that place, you're done seeking, asking the Lord, asking the Lord. Look, he said it. He's done. He's given the word. He's given it to you. Now you go to war. Yeah, sometimes in idolatry, we ask for evidence before we put our own selves on the altar. Absolutely. 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 Um, yeah, beautiful. So, Numbers 14, Numbers 14:9. So I will go deeper into the certainty. Okay, I'm going to go deeper into how do you know? How do you know? Um, and I just kind of gave you some at some point you've got to say, okay, I confess that this is from the Lord and he's been telling me this over and over again and I'm okay, I'm good. I'm good, I got it. Right? It's like Gideon. He didn't throw 15 fleeces, he threw two. And after the second, he's like, okay, I'm good. Right? So Numbers 14:1. This is when the 10 spies, one of my favorite stories. I talk about the 10 spies' eyes and the two spies' eyes, right? So this is when the 12 spies have gone to spy out the promised land and the 10 come back and they're like, it's terrible, it's horrible, the land is great, but there's giants and we're dead. We're doomed. Like this is ultimate, we're self-destruction, right? If we go forward. And two, Caleb and Joshua, the two, that's why I say the two spies versus the 10 spies' eyes. They had spiritual sight. And one of my favorite verses in the Bible is 14:9. Caleb says, only rebel not ye against the Lord. Very interesting. If you actually make choices based on your earthly eyes and your own understanding, that is not in alignment and obedience and agreement with what the Lord has said over your life, you are in rebellion. And rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Okay, it's serious. Only rebel not ye against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land. We are literally not allowed to fear anything that comes out of our husband's mouths as true. For they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Fear them not. Look at the tents there. There's 9 foot 9 inch tall, towering men with 125 pounds of armor. Okay. At least five of them, because David picked up 5 stones. It was Goliath, and he had 4 brothers, and there was like probably more. And Caleb is saying their defense is departed. It's already happened. It's already happened. Not will, is departed. It's done. Because he understood that battles are won in the courts of heaven, and the victory is walked out on the battlefield. Battles are won in the courts of heaven, and the victory is walked out on the battlefield. You don't actually battle on the battlefield. You rejoice and praise and celebrate the certain victory of the battle on the battlefield. That is why, if you're feeling exhausted from battling, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Okay. Battling is actually how fun is singing and dancing and praising and worshiping. Like that's fun. That's great. It's awesome. It's not exhausting. It's amazing. It's great. That's what your warfare, most of your warfare should actually look like. Okay. It's not travailing. I mean, that's fine. Travailing is important, all of that, but it is not supposed to wear you out and exhaust you into a place of like non-functional, you know, distress. That just means nobody's taught you how to war. Okay. So, and how hard is it to go to court? I mean, you go to court and you're like, I would like a ruling of victory, and then the Lord is yes, okay, and you're like, great, thank you. That's the warfare. That's the battle right there, right? Standing in court with a privileged position that Satan cannot touch and getting exactly what you want from your father and walking away with like, sorry, lost that one. That's how warfare, that's what it is. Okay? Not this kind of, groveling, like exhausted, like straining warfare that most people think of as warfare. Now, you might, when you go into the courts of heaven, you go into prayer, you might be like, oh, Satan's got some things against me. Okay, I got to deal with those. That can be exhausting because that's the travailing, repenting on your face. Like, you know, that can be exhausting. But it doesn't have to last that long. Okay. So Caleb is seeing with courtroom eyes, right? He's seeing in the courts of heaven. He understands that the ruling of victory has already been handed down, and that's it. It doesn't matter what it looks like on earth. It does not matter. Literally, the next sentence, but all the congregation bade stone them with stones. Literally, that's how deluded they were. That's how demonically oppressed they were. That's how ignorant they are of spiritual law, right? Somebody could tell you forever and ever till they're blue in the face. If you step off that cliff, you will fly. And you'll be like, you're crazy, right? Kind of the opposite here. Caleb was like spiritual law. This is why I say spiritual law works opposite of natural law. That's why it's so hard to see with spiritual eyes. That's why it's so difficult. On earth, we think might and physical strength matters, right? So it doesn't. What matters is what has been handed down in the courts of heaven. That is all that matters. Literally all that matters. So he's holding up the thing. He's like, "You guys, we've had the ruling. Like I don't get it." This is the reason I am harping on this is because to me this is one of the most potent, clear examples of the conflict that we walk in, being humans, but being expected to walk with spiritual sight and decide with spiritual sight and see with spiritual sight. And this is what every time like doesn't well, but my husband doesn't want it. Literally, what you're doing is saying, my husband is the giant here, and what he wants matters more than what God wants. Now you can have, and we're going to go there because you can be like, well, I don't, free will kind of matters. Yes, and maybe. The point is, who matters is God's will, not what your husband wants. Okay, stop caring about what your husband is saying right now in under an addictive, demonic, whatever, right? Delusion. My husband totally said all kinds of crazy things to me. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. What matters is what God wills. Okay? So now we're going to go to the next piece in this puzzle. My goal by the end of this is to arm you with such bulletproof. I want to make you bulletproof to any of these objections from the enemy because that's what they are. In the courts of heaven, that's what they are. He's objecting, right? And he's trying to throw things at you to cause you to um be blinded and fall into amnesia about the ruling of victory that the Lord has already given you. And if the Lord hasn't given it to you, then that's just ask for it. Go fast and pray, and just ask for a ruling of victory. Why so um Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. Um, I think that's very interesting. I think that's extremely interesting. I think that has some interesting implications. The point here is two things. The the king's heart is not in your hands, and you cannot turn it any way you want. You can't. But equally, the king's heart, your husband's heart, is in the Lord's hands, and he apparently turns it whithersoever he will. This is an echo of Proverbs 20:24. Man's goings are of the Lord. How can a man then understand his own way? That's why I don't take anything your husband is now. I want to qualify this. I was going to say don't take anything your husband says seriously. There's actually things that he's saying that matter quite a bit. Um, um, but frankly, if you're in a demonic dynamic right now, it's just best to focus on yourself and the warfare, and those things will be cleared up later. But there are things that he is saying that matter greatly, which have to do with your heart posture. But what he says about what he wants, what he doesn't want, what he cares, it doesn't matter. Okay, that stuff does not matter. So Proverbs 21:1, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. I'm just saying that's some pretty significant, interesting. So who matters more? It what condition the king's heart is in the moment, which you can't really even see anyway, because the Lord is the one who searches our hearts, or what God is telling you his will is for the marriage, right? So now we're going to go to, and I did a short little TikTok on this, but I wanted to, this is just so important. So this is Romans 7. And the reason I think this is so beautiful is because I think that Paul here is talking about the condition not only that he is in now, that we are in now, always, but actually the condition that he was in when he was ambushed by heaven on the way to capture Christians and take them back to Rome to be tortured and probably killed. And this is explaining, my point here is this is explaining theologically, scripturally, biblically, why it doesn't matter what is coming out of your husband's mouth right now. Okay. Verse 14, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. Listen to the two selves, the two eyes. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that do I not. But what I hate, that I do. If then I do that which I would not, okay, there's two selves here. Okay, he's not talking about the same I. There are two I's. I consent unto the law that it is good. Now then, it is no more that I do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. For the good that I would, I do not, But the evil which I would not, that I do. Okay, this is fascinating in so many ways. But the thing that I want to point out here is that the Paul that is doing the evil, that the Paul that doesn't want to do the evil doesn't want to do, is like your husband who is telling you he doesn't love you anymore, doesn't want the marriage, doesn't, that is an irrelevant Paul. Okay. That is an irrelevant report because there is another self present. There is another Paul present that the Lord, and I believe this demonstrates that conflict that was happening beneath his awareness, beneath his consciousness, when he was thinking that um, being a bounty hunter to go, gather up Christians and take them to Rome to be tortured and killed was pleasing God. If you had stopped Paul right before the ambush happened, right? And you had said to him, "Do you honestly really you really believe like 100% that you are on God's you're following God's will for you right now. Like you literally believe that in Damascus, you're going to go capture these Christians and bring them to Rome. And that's a good thing. Like God is happy with that." And he would have said with the most convincing yes you've ever heard. Absolutely 100%. And he would have given you reasons and excuses. Right. It's like doctors performing abortions think they're right. And you would have been like, wow, this guy really, really, really 100% does not want to be saved, doesn't think he needs to be saved. This is not a man that was like, I'm a little conflicted about it, honestly. No, no. For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. So, had you had this conversation with Paul 2 seconds before God ambushed him, you would think that it mattered what was coming out of Paul's mouth in terms of his destiny, in terms of the plans that God had for him. And you would be wrong. You would be wrong, right? You'd be wrong. It is not until your husband is fully delivered from the demonic oppression and influence that he is under that the words that are coming out of his mouth matter. You understand? Or represent the truth of who he is and what his spirit wants. So, this, I believe, this passage, Romans 7:14 to 20, demonstrates the difference between what your spirit wants and wills and what your flesh or your soul wants and wills. And where does our consciousness lie? Our consciousness lies in our flesh and our soul. That's what we're aware of. And so Paul, I believe, is expressing here the reality that he was walking in when he was on the road to Damascus, and his flesh and his soul was like, I want Christians killed. And his spirit was like, I want to be free. I want to be free of this demonic influence. I want to be free of my demonic prisoners that have me captive in this man's flesh and soul. Okay? That was the cosmic, spiritual battle that was going on within him that he didn't know about. You wouldn't have seen it as a battle. You wouldn't have experienced him as a torn man, which is what I'm trying to say is your husband is going to look very confident in what he's saying. Okay? And God ambushed Paul anyway. So, what was God looking at? I believe he was looking at Paul's heart, spiritual heart. I believe he was looking into the Paul's spirit, what his true will, what he really was willing, what he was really wanting, what his spirit willed, not what his flesh willed. And that he was drawing on, you know, um, Proverbs 21:1, the king's heart, your heart is in my hand. and I'm about to turn it. I'm about to change your heart. You are about to have a change of heart. He immediately proclaimed Jesus. Exactly. 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 The change of heart that your husband must go through, okay? Must. In order for this transformation to happen, and there's a change of heart for you too, very important change of heart that you probably are just as blind to, frankly. That change of heart for your husband is going to be invisible to him until it happens. Okay, until it happens. Chances are he's not. Some of you have husbands who really are torn, right? And some of you have husbands that are like not torn at all because they are not perceiving it. They're spiritually dead. This is or spiritually asleep. This is another thing that I talked about that I think is so beautiful in the creation story. We have such a beautiful blueprint of all of this. The heart posture matters concerning things of God. Absolutely, right? But that's the thing. You can be super demonized and the Lord still can see your true heart, right? You can be super demonized and the Lord can still look at Paul. I don't know how you get, I mean, maybe you can get worse than Paul, but like not, hardly, you know what I mean? Hardly more demonized, totally delusional, absolutely in every way, totally delusional. That's why I love that he is one of the apostles, right? I just think the Lord is so, I mean, he's like, and for all of you, for all of you who weren't like fishermen, or tax collectors, but were like literally persecuting me, there's hope for you too. And of course, I have an affinity for that because that was me. That's what I did for years when I was in New Age. Absolute disdain and disgust for Christianity. And I think also it demonstrates the condition of so many marriages, so many husbands, prodigal, our prodigal sons, right? The father's prodigal sons that are just like, I'm out of here and you are not going to tell me anything. And, it says in that story that he came to himself. The prodigal son, he came to himself, very similar to what it says about Paul. His eyes were open. There's this moment of like, wait a minute, what the heck is going on? Where have I been? What have I been doing? Right? So if you've been talking to that person, that prodigal son or Paul or any, right, when they're in that delusion, you are going to be fooled. That's why it doesn't matter. That's why I'm saying it doesn't matter what your husband wants. What matters is what God wills. Okay. So another reason of that is I'm going to take you to Genesis 2:21. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And then Genesis 2:22, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman and brought her unto the man. That word deep sleep is tardima in Hebrew, and it means like a trance-like sleep. It means a sleep so deep, it's like he's dead. That is the moment when Eve was created. So if your husband is spiritually asleep, right? If he's doing all kinds of crazy stuff, I've heard from so many women, it is nuts. How many wives I have heard from who are like, my husband is acting, I don't even recognize him. This is so weird. This is so out of character. He's, having affairs or he's falling into addiction or he's doing these things and he's just suddenly gone cold and all these things. And I don't recognize this. This is not him. He has fallen into what I call the devil's tardima. That's what's happening right now. The husbands are falling into what I call the devil's tardima, the sleep of spiritual death. And this is your moment. This is your moment to rise and don't turn around and kick your husband because he's sleeping and be like, wake up. What's wrong with you? Right? If you turn around and you're like, hey, wait, where are you? Right? And you're like, you're supposed to be here with me. Like, we're supposed to, okay, this is your moment. This is your warrior wife moment. This is it. This is when it gets activated, right? And the worst thing to do is to take your husband's sleep as meaning anything other than this is your moment to go to war, right? The worst thing to do is to look at him as the enemy rather than whose influence he succumbed to. That's your enemy. The worst thing to do is be like, well, I can't wake him up, so I don't know. That's not your job. The Lord's going to wake him up. The Lord is going to ambush him as a result of you partnering with heaven in the ways that the Lord is calling you to do, which is what we're going to go through in this holy pattern series. Okay? So if your husband has fallen asleep, by which I mean he's abandoned his responsibilities as a husband, he's like saying crazy stuff and doing crazy stuff. Like, what is going on with you? Okay. He's sleepwalking, is what he's doing. He's sleepwalking. You know how people when they sleepwalk, they do weird things that they don't even know. They're like, I did that? I said that? What? Like, that's what's happening. He's spiritually sleepwalking. Okay. And your sight is the most important, like, weapon in a sense. Because if you don't have your proper sight about this, you won't go to war in the proper way. And you'll actually be an instrument of the enemy. Okay. So that's about it for today. Um, yeah, like that is it just there is such an intensity that I am feeling from the Lord for you to, yeah. So there was something else. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I released yesterday. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It's incredible. The prophetic word for 2026. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. It's in the equipping room. And there's this really fascinating piece that is for the other woman. If there's an other woman in your life, in your marriage, this is the year she is made irrelevant. Not just by default, there's things you have to do. I mean, that's it. But here, so anyway, there's a lot of this going on. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy how many marriages are being plagued by adultery and affairs where the wife is like, this is not like my husband. Like, I don't understand what's going on. It's witchcraft. Okay. It is absolute witchcraft. And I was thinking about this morning and I felt this righteous indignation well up inside of me. Thankfully, my husband has not cheated on me. I have been cheated on before, though, so I know how it feels, but I wasn't a believer then. But it was as if the Lord was filling me with this righteous indignation and putting me on assignment to transfer this to you because this is not where I plan on going, but whatever. If there is another woman in your marriage, do not take it sitting down. She is trespassing on a sacred covenant. This you cannot you you need to channel all of your feelings about what is happening and channel them into righteous indignation and go to the courts of heaven and get a ruling, serve her with an eviction notice from your covenant relationship. That is what you need to do. You're the wife. You are the wife. You have power. You have authority. It's like this is how it feels to me. A lot of the wives, and I get it because it's devastating. But the enemy wants you to stay in that kind of devastated, hurt, wounded, oh my gosh place. No, you need to stand up and take yourself to the courts of heaven. Okay? Because if somebody broke into your home, how long would you spend mourning and grieving that before you went to the courthouse and said, hey, there is somebody living in my home illegally. and I need an eviction notice because I'm kicking them out. That is what you would do, okay? That is literally what you would do. You wouldn't be you wouldn't you just would be like, "Okay, this is how you want to play it? Cool. I'm going to court. I want to see attitude." Righteous attitude, not, I want to see, and I do not feel like this is from me. I feel like this is from the Lord. Like, where is your indignation? Where is your, excuse me, excuse me. You're out. You have that right. You are the wife. You are the other half of him. This is a sacred covenant, and she is breaking it. She is breaking spiritual law. So is your husband, and you're going to deal with him too. But like there needs to be a movement of like a march on the courts of heaven of all of these wives to get eviction notices for the other woman and throw her out. Stop giving her power that she doesn't have. Stop giving her access that can be revoked by your, court appearance. Not what I plan on saying, but it's so important. Like you have rights spiritually to deal with that woman. Don't do it in the physical. Leave her alone. Just don't address her in the physical in any way. Um, I was praying for God to remove the other woman. One night I fell on my knees in my shower and told God to remove her. Enough was enough. My husband called in 2 hours and she was gone. You guys, listen, you have no idea how much the Lord is like, just say the word. Just say the word. He's not going to do it all on his own. That would be, he wants relationship with us. Right? He could just be a puppet master and be like, ding, ding, ding. I mean, it's like playing chess against yourself. You know what I mean? That's no fun. He number one, he wants a relationship with us. Right? Remember how he went to Abraham and he's like, hey, friend, this is what I'm thinking of doing to Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham was like, can I comment? And he's like, sure. What do you think? I mean, there was a relationship there. It impacted heaven's plans. And you can talk about the theology of the fact that God exists outside of time, and so we already knew, like, whatever. Okay, fine. But that's not where we live. We live in time. Okay, we live in relationship where our prayers matter and our petitions matter. And the Lord is not just going to be like, sit back, I'll just do it all for you. That's not what he wants. He wants us to walk in our authority that he has given us. And he expects us to use it. He expects us to use it. So I want to see a march on heaven of all these wives who have been um, cheated on. I just want to see eviction notice after eviction notice after eviction notice. And thank you so much to the woman who said after 2 hours of her prayer, this other woman was God. I'm telling you, you don't understand how special you are to your Father in heaven. You don't understand how special you are to him. You are the apple of his eye, and he has given you, where he bestows great responsibility, he also bestows great authority. He has given you such mighty authority, and it is time to use it. But you can't use it if you're fooled about where to place your sight and your perspective. That is why the enemy goes after your insight, your perspective, your hearing, because what he says to you that you allow through your ear gates changes what you see. And because what you see is where you war, you are ineffective. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the recording.